Today we are going to talk about the period of time during the 1600s and 1700s when the colonies were formed, and we will also discuss the topic of the father of our country, who is George Washington. And here we have a picture of a General George Washington at Valley Forge in Pennsylvania. So the topic of our lesson today is the colonies under the British rule and George Washington. So let's move on and discuss more details. In the 1600s and 1700s, Europeans came to North America looking for religious freedom, political liberty, and economic opportunities. So they created 13 colonies on the east coast of the United States. Each colony had its own government, but the British king controlled these governments. And by the 1770s, many colonies were angry because they didn't have self-government. They had to pay high taxes to the king. And they were also angry because the colonies were forced to let British soldiers sleep and eat in their houses. So in 1774, leaders from the colonies met in Philadelphia to discuss British laws that they believed were unfair. They believed that Great Britain didn't treat the colonies as equal citizens. They thought that people needed more control over their government. So in 1775, colonies fought against the British Army in Massachusetts, which is here. The leaders met again and decided to organize an army. George Washington became the commander-in-chief of that army. So here I have highlighted 3 reasons why would the colonists be so angry with the king. So the first one, they didn't have self-government. The second reason, they were paying high taxes to the king. And the last reason is that the British soldiers had to sleep and eat in their homes. So these are some of the questions that you might find on your citizenship test. One of the questions on our citizenship test is about the father of our country, and that person is George Washington. So here you can take a look at the George Washington's home in Mount Vernon in Virginia. George Washington was born in Virginia on February 22, 1732. Washington owned a large farm in Mount Vernon in Virginia. He had many years of experience as a soldier in the army. And when the Revolutionary War began in 1775, the colonies chose Washington to be the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army to fight the British. The war was long and difficult, but the colonies finally won independence in 1783. In 1789, he was chosen as the first president of the new United States. He served as a president until 1797 and died in 1799. Today, Americans call George Washington the father of our country, and the state of Washington and our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., were named after him. So this is briefly the information about the first president of the United States, George Washington. And finally, we have here our civics test questions. The first one, why did the colonists fight the British? And there were 3 reasons for that. The high taxes, British army stayed in their houses, and they didn't have self-government. The second question, there were 13 original states. Name 3. So we could name North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And the last 2 questions are about George Washington. So question number 3, who is the father of our country? And the father of our country is George Washington. And question number 4, who was the first president? And again, the first president was George Washington. That's the end of our lesson for today. Thank you again for being with us. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.